Hello and welcome to Channel Hope Podcast, where we share stories each fortnight to inspire and help people channel hope through life's challenges. I'm your host, Rata Campbell. In this powerful episode, Liz Verkleij shares her deeply personal story, starting over at 32 after a difficult marriage. From moving out of the city to provincial New Zealand, meeting a new man of her dreams, to her torrid journey through fertility struggles, IVF, miscarriages, and ultimately bringing her miracle daughter into the world. Liz's story is real, raw, and hopeful. If you're walking a tough path, challenging society's stigma around pregnancy and parenthood, this is a must listen. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for reaching out. It's actually quite touching that people want to share their stories, and this one, yours, is especially challenging. If you could introduce yourself and your background.
Called Liz Verkleij. I am a kaiako, a teacher. I teach secondary. I'm in my 19th year, currently based in the Wairarapa. I'm originally from Hamilton. I've always been a city girl, and then I fell in love with the dairy farmer, and now I live on a farm.
It's a very Kiwi story, isn't it? Yeah.
I am married to Brown. We have one little girl, Emily, and she is 2 and 3 weeks. And she's got 2 Dutch grandparents and a Canadian grandparent.
Your mum, the Canadian.
That's my mum, the Canadian, yeah.
That's the connection. Gosh, I've known you for how long now, and I didn't even realise that.
Yeah, so it's mum.
We both have Canadian mamas. Amazing.
I love to travel. I still love being in the classroom with teenagers. Been doing it since I was 22 in some pretty hard schools, both in Auckland, London, and in London. But yeah, so teaching wasn't really on the cards in the early days, but it's just complemented who I am, and it's all been about relationships with the students. I really love what I do. It is hard. It's really, really hard, but it's so cool to see the direction it's taken me as well. So I've been in middle management as a HOD of social sciences for the last 12 years. Dipped in and out of doing some senior leadership roles, but since having my daughter as an older mum, I'm finding that slowing down a little bit and just really enjoying that time in the classroom.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's inevitable when you have children. Our lives aren't our own anymore, are they? Like, you end up having to reserve a lot of time and energy for family life.
Yeah. And they also talk about that whole thing that it takes a village to raise a child. I'm about almost 6 hours from my village, my family. And my husband, his parents live about an hour away. So that has come with its challenges. But when he gets sick and when the baby's sick, so my school is incredibly supportive.
You know, when we met, I have to say this because it kind of cracks me up every time I think about us doing boot camp classes together.
Oh, your boot camp, that's right.
Yeah, with a personal trainer. We were always in trouble. Back then, you were having conversations about having a family of your own, having children. I do remember fertility issues being even raised. Talk us through just those early days when you were planning.
We never really investigated fully if I had endometriosis, but we did have keyhole surgery. Then they found a cyst when I was about 22. And I just remember this is not normal every month that I'm in pain, that I can't get out of bed. I didn't really advocate. There wasn't much awareness around it, I suppose. Then it just got into the too hard basket. And so I just shelved it. During my 20s, it was all about moving to London, traveling, teaching. My relationship at the time, I didn't think children was on the cards for us.
Yeah.
Because on reflection, I don't think I wanted to have children within that relationship, in that environment. And I think also at the time when we met, I was just coming back from the UK, and I was transitioning back into life in New Zealand, and I know my partner at the time struggled with the transition, getting work, whereas I was offered my job when I left the UK. But I just struggled with being back in New Zealand. I suppose I was not really wanting to grow up, but knowing, that's right, back in my early 20s, there were problems with this. So I had a few things against me at the time. When that relationship ended and I made the move out of Auckland, wasn't even thinking about being a mum.
Yeah.
It was all about starting over at 32, thinking, oh gosh, going from a school of 3,500 to a school of 150, a boarding school. It really was starting over in provincial New Zealand.
What a brave move to make. It's quite a big thing to actually just recognize that you need a fresh start.
I basically uplifted from family, from friends. It was just something that I needed to do. I was like, nah, be brave, take that move.
It was probably the best move you made. You were able to find your own feet. You obviously met this farmer boy that ended up becoming your husband. So, not a bad deal.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually met him my first year at the school. I think after that, it was a blind date that was set up. He was just so nice
Mm.
and a gentleman. And there was just something about him that he was kind.
Yeah.
And to me,
That's everything.
That's everything. I still believed in love and I still believed in marriage. He also made me brave to trust again.
I know you had a beautiful marriage. I've witnessed all these things from afar. When you were ready to consider having a family, what happened that made you end up having to go down the IVF route?
So we actually started trying naturally when I was 34. It was also during this time we found out my dad was sick. So that was a huge blow. Dad was going through treatment and stuff. It's really important that my dad walks me down the aisle. So we actually pushed forward the wedding date. Dad had cancer of the bile duct. It's quite a rare cancer.
Gosh.
That just steamrolled all of us because Dad was always our glue. With the whole trying to get pregnant, we're trying, but nothing was happening. My GP at the time tried to fast track me through the system. It was all really about the wedding, so I wasn't really thinking about getting pregnant. Got married in February of 2020, and then COVID. We were lucky that we were actually able to have our wedding. My wedding was probably the last opportunity we had as a family where my father was dancing. We have family photos where he's well. He would sadly pass away in June of that year. My siblings and I, we cared for my dad because of the lockdown, and Mum did as well.
I think you guys had a clue quite early on that it was
how bad it was.
Really serious. So you had to make the most of your time with him.
Yeah. I mean, Dad was lucky. He was able to go and use his health insurance to go privately.
Yeah.
So we were able to get that little bit more time. Things weren't working within the public health system. I hadn't really done my research. I live in a place where my living costs aren't high like Auckland was.
Yeah.
And so my husband and we talked about it, and I was just like, yeah, let's do IVF. I set up a meeting. I hadn't talked to anybody that had gone through it. I'd looked it up. I might have seen a couple of things on social media or whatever, but I didn't really do my homework. I had this idea that it guaranteed a child. I had all these misconceptions, like I was grieving, I was overwhelmed.
Yes.
COVID had knocked the socks out of all of us. I was 35 then. I was like, I want a child. I want to have a family. I felt the expectation that I wasn't always going to be the auntie that turns up at a 5-year-old birthday party with Prosecco, I loved being an auntie, but I also was like, and my friends,
is there something wrong with taking Prosecco to places?
There's nothing.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
We talked about it, but I think my husband was like, whatever you think is right, we'll just do it.
Right.
So by this stage, it's almost 3 years and 2.5 years, and then had a meeting with a nurse. When I had met with gynecologists, they'd said my weight, my age, but they said they didn't know why I wasn't getting pregnant naturally. I was trying all these different apps, trying to track stuff. Financially, we can do this, but there was a waiting list to even just get an appointment. I was 36 at this stage. I couldn't get an appointment till April the following year. Yeah.
Right.
Just to see a gynecologist through the fertility clinic. People think because you're paying for it, it makes it quicker. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'd imagine the demand for IVF is actually a lot higher than people realise as well.
Yeah. Talking with current people, the costs have gone up, and also there's a high demand.
It's an arduous process to just do the one. So was it just
yeah.
one time, or are we talking several rounds of IVF?
We were 5 times that we did the transfer. Yeah.
Holy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Had the appointment in April of 2021. I was probably at my lightest. I'd been doing things like getting nutrition and trying to control stuff. It was at this time that my gynecologist put me on the public waiting list for IVF. I'd had ultrasounds to check, and they just couldn't find anything. They said I have what's called unexplained fertility.
Yes.
At the time, and now it was about checking my husband. we were told to consider maybe doing some counselling before we started this journey. But I was like, no, we're fine. We're just going to go straight into it. You don't realise the drugs, what it might do to you or to your relationship. There was also the pressure of to talk with my school about needing, because you need the time off. We would have to talk about financially what it would mean, because it's basically a down deposit on a house. We had our meeting, then they put a plan in place. We were doing it privately, so we were completely oblivious what we were actually going in for. But all I knew was that I wanted to have a child with this man. We started the process, met with the nurse, and then started the first stage, which is the drugs. And during this time, I'm vocal about everything. Everyone knows I'm doing IVF. They know I want to have a child. I'm talking them through the needles and stuff. Like, we were given the pamphlets. We were told to read through things, talk about things. How do we do this? And I just remember looking at how to do the first, like, needle prick. I got my husband to do the first one. I'm like, yay, first one. You're so hopeful, you know. I've been brave before. I know what resilience is. We can do this. Basically, you do the needles, and then you're supposed to then go do the egg collection. And your body's just so bloated.
Yeah.
So I had to go back to the clinic, and then I had to do my egg collection. It was like you're in a spaceship. There's the embryologist over there, and there's you. There's the gynecologist. So these nurses. My body actually overstimulated. So I actually produced a lot of eggs. The husband goes and does his thing. I was supposed to have what was called a fresh transfer.
Yes.
They said that it was not safe for my body to have a fresh embryo transfer. So they actually froze the embryos. I had about 7 embryos. So I was very lucky.
Wow. Yeah.
And 3 of those are still stored in Wellington. They said, right, we'll wait till your body calms down to do the transfer. We'll get you back. You've got to take more medication to then to prepare your body to make it feel like it's pregnant, you know.
Yes. Yes.
And that medication was a little bit of fun time, wasn't it? I could deal with the needles, but it was the medication that went up vaginally. And then there's the oral medication too. And it had to be like every 3 hours. I went to the bathroom in between school, in between lessons, or I had to go during a lesson because my timings, it had to be quite particular. And then we had our first transfer. So when they defrosted the embryos, one didn't survive. So they needed to use another one, but they said it was all right. You got 7. You got 7. It's fine. I was thinking, yay, we're going to get pregnant. It's going to be great. It's going to be fine. That was a blur as well, my first transfer. I just remember it was a little bit icky and sore, and I wasn't sure what to expect. Lockdown was happening in Wellington at the time with the first transfer. Had the transfer, and it was going to be a 2-week window where I would find whether or not I was pregnant. I remember the first time I was told my first transfer was not successful. I was sitting in the lounge because COVID was happening and school was in lockdown. I had just finished a lesson. They called me and I was like, oh, where's the husband? Oh, no, it's all right. I'll do it myself. And then they said, sorry, Liz, you have not been successful.
It's pretty devastating news to get without your husband's support.
5 minutes later, I had to be online with a class. And then the husband came home afterwards. Oh, how'd we go? And I was like, not successful. And he was like, oh, okay. And I was like, shouldn't you feel a bit sadder about this? Like, I didn't really know what to think, but we'll try again. We'll try again. I think what I was feeling at the time was the sense of failure. My body has failed me. This is my fault. Shame. Oh, I'm too old. I've waited too long. And then they were like, would you like to try again? Would you like to see a counsellor? I'm like, no, I'm fine. Again, not dealing with it. So we did a second transfer. And it's all about just getting pregnant. My life is going on hold. That's it. The second transfer was actually when Wellington was in lockdown. He was allowed to come up, but he had to stay in the car. So I actually did the second transfer by myself. I'm now starting to blame myself, angry with my body. And of course, everyone knows when I'm going for my transfer because I'm talking about it. They called me. And I was sitting in the New World car park. You know, and of course, I've had the 2-week window with the drugs and, you know, I've gone through the whole process again. And they told me while I was sitting in the car park that my second transfer had not been successful.
Right.
And somehow I just drove home for 35 minutes from the New World car park. I get home and I'm just like, oh, by the way, it didn't work again. He was like, oh, do you want to talk about it? I was like, no, I'm fine. I wasn't. And I was like, right, let's try again. And he was like, let's just put the brake on a bit. Our relationship at this point is starting to get tense.
Totally understandable. I mean, this is extremely heavy.
Now I've got 4 embryos in the freezer. Fast forward 7 months, 6 months, I was like, right, it's time. I think we should try again. And he was like, I don't know, I'm just happy being us now. And I was like, no, I want to be a mum. During this time, I've joined IVF groups. I'm finding a community, women documenting their stories,
Yes.
of injecting themselves, of waiting for the blood results, going to the hospital, going to the clinic. I made some connections virtually, but also there were women in my space. And we sort of like connected through this. At this stage in my late 30s, I've also connected with people who don't have children by choice. I'm meeting women that say, don't go to baby showers. I'm now starting to get triggered by seeing pregnant women in my local cafe, triggered by those questions. Oh, are you going to have a family? Why haven't you had a family? You should just relax. The unsolicited advice.
Society's ability to just push its expectations and wants for you, not that it's anyone else's business, is incredible, right?
Yeah. By this stage, we're a year in the fertility treatment. I won't even say how much it was.
Actually, why not? I mean, you give people an indication of what sort of investment you actually have to make.
I think it was probably about $35,000 by this stage.
Wow.
Yeah. As a woman, I can't even get pregnant naturally. Like, I was just hating on myself. I was overstimulated by what was online.
Yes.
I was fixated on getting pregnant. And now I've got a husband that's not wanting to get involved in it that much because he's like, look what it's doing to you. But I wasn't seeing that. We tried again. I was like, no, one more time. This was our 4th embryo. I had the embryos tested. They're fine.
Yes.
They should attach. We're not sure why it happened because you want to know why. It was April of 2022. So we'd given ourselves about 7 months or 6 months. And went through it all again, having the transfer. My husband was allowed with me this time. And then I got a call that I was pregnant. So this was my 3rd transfer. I'm a talker. People knew I was pregnant at 4.5 weeks, so they know exactly my due date. I'd organised a midwife. I was pregnant for about 10 days. I got COVID, and that's when you had to stay home. You remember when we had to do like 7 days at home or something?
Yeah.
The 2nd day in, I just felt some cramps, and that night I started bleeding.
Oh,
and
Liz,
I was like, and I was at home, wasn't allowed to leave the house. And I remember reaching out to the clinic going, I've been bleeding. I'm not sure if I've miscarried. So basically, I had to stay at the house for another 4 or 5 days, not knowing whether or not I miscarried. They said, we can't see you. You have to stay home. And I remember the first day I went back at school and I did the blood test that morning. I remember sitting through a class mediation. And then I could just feel my body rejecting whatever it was. And I'm still waiting to hear. And I've come to the conclusion that I've lost my child, my baby. And then I just remember about to leave school. Bloody car parks, man. And I get another phone call from the clinic to say, we're sorry, but you're no longer pregnant.
For God's sake. So that was embryo number 4 of 7.
That was, yes. It was a teacher that walked past and I said, can you sit with me until my husband gets here? I have just been told I've miscarried my child. It's my fault. I lost the child. What did I do wrong? My husband and I, by this stage, things are tense. And then I took up the counselling. So this would be my first miscarriage. Suddenly I was part of a club that I didn't want to be a part of. And so I found the Pink Elephant charity in Australia. I reached out to the SANS person. I was getting comments like, at least you can get pregnant. It was only 5 weeks. And then I just shut down on this first miscarriage. My husband wanted to take a break.
In every step, people were finding a chink in your armour to reinforce those societal strange values that we cling to.
Yeah. And then I got the news I could do the public funding.
Right.
But I would have to be this certain weight. I'm only 2 kilos over. Suddenly it was about my weight. I've got everything else against me. Why would I want to keep going on this journey? And my relationship at this time wasn't very good. I was angry at him. I wanted him to feel more. He's
Yeah.
like, well, maybe it wasn't meant to be. I want you back. I was always proud of myself for turning up and being brave to the baby showers. And now I'm getting even more triggered. Then I'd feel guilty and angry at myself. So there was a period there where we went traveling and we did some cool stuff and we just paused. But it was always sitting there in the back of my mind. Then I was like, let's do the public
How old are you
funding.
as well at this point, Liz?
I was 38. I know what I'm in for. I'm prepared. I'm prepping myself. I know what I'm in for. I know what we're doing. We paid extra to have the embryos tested. My body didn't overstimulate. So I was able to have another transfer. And I'm like, yay, maybe I will get pregnant. You know, the 2-week window of waiting, my husband had to be with me when I was getting the call from the clinic. I told school about this one because I had to have the time off. So they're all waiting to know. He got the phone call. We were together when they called him and they told us we were pregnant again. We're optimistic. Then we were told, oh, we can go for a scan. I was supposed to be 8 weeks at this stage, thinking, oh yes, this is it. God has been listening to my prayers. Everyone's excited. So everyone knew I was pregnant at 6 weeks. Like people knew when I actually went to have the transfer. And then we went for our scan. I was all excited. I was like, oh, can you find it? Can you see the heartbeat? The woman that was doing trying to find it, she was like, not too sure, but what I would suggest is that you just wait for the clinic to call you. And she said, from what I can see, there's no heartbeat. And I was like, excuse me? I was like, I want you to tell me. And my husband was like, let's just go. There was no talking between us. We just left quietly. And we went to a cafe and I just remember him sitting, just broken. I was supposed to be going to Australia to see my friend in Perth. I'd had all these plans. Lo and behold, they said, expect to start bleeding, expect to start naturally miscarrying. Make sure you still eat and drink properly like you're pregnant. So I don't know what to feel. Have the scan in Auckland. They thought there was a flickering. And then the clinic calls me again, the Wellington office, and they said, look, we want you to do a third scan. Have the third scan in Palmerston North, the same place that they told me there's no heartbeat. We don't see it yet. They said, look, we're just going to check that it's a possible miscarriage, that it was a missed miscarriage. There was no heartbeat, and that by this stage there should have been a heartbeat.
Oh, gosh, that's so heavy.
The clinic said, right, you can do a D&C, like an abortion.
Yeah.
Or you can take a pill or just hope that you start bleeding. I was like, book me in for a D&C, and at least time then I can bury my embryo, my child. I had to go to the abortion clinic in Palmerston North, and there was a screen between myself and another young wahine when I was going in to have the D&C, holding it all together, and suddenly I just, no. And I was just so like, I've had something not alive in me for about 4 weeks because I had to wait to get an appointment.
Yeah.
And I went to work. Somebody in my team said to me, I'm pregnant.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm just sitting there going, I'm so happy for you. And then I think I just hid. By this stage, there's about 4 or 5 women pregnant at this school. Maybe this is just a sign not to do it. And then I remember getting the bill for the storage of my private ones. And then I was thinking, I need to do counselling. You know, I hate myself. I've failed. And then the online virtual community are all like, you know, we're here. Something told me, like, he was ready to give up. I just worked. There were students in front of me who I just continued to put my love and care into them. A reality check for me was like, okay, there's nothing wrong with just being 2 of us. We got our embryo back. We were able to bury it. I was saying goodbye to this little flickering light, you know, this hope. I was like, I'm not ready to give up yet. If I can sit through my heart breaking and still find care for someone else who's scared to be pregnant, I can do this again. I can still hold space for myself. Let's do the public funding again. Let's do one more transfer. I tried to justify it to my husband. So we can do one more. Well, then we did the transfer. I was already telling myself it's not going to stick. It's going to be a third miscarriage. That's what I was telling myself on the 2-hour drive to Wellington. And by this stage, all the nurses know us. They kept offering the counsellor. In between this time, I'd gone to France like a week after my DNC. I thought it would be good for me. No, I bled on the way. I just remember being over there by myself going, I shouldn't have gone on this trip. In early August or July, late July, we did the second transfer, which was free through the public system. And I was 38 at this time. I didn't want to be around when we got the call 2 weeks later. I
Yes.
just blocked it out. I deleted all like IVF people I'd been following. I removed myself from
Yeah.
everything and I just
Yeah.
stayed in my space.
Yes.
He got the call. I called him. He was like, we're pregnant.
Oh, God. What a roller coaster.
This time I hadn't told anyone I was doing this transfer. Nobody knew. My mother didn't know. I didn't tell anyone. Whereas before, every bloody person knew. I remember walking through the quad at school, leaving my classroom to go to the car, and I started bleeding. I
Oh,
was like, "Oh my God."
gosh.
And then I had really bad bleeding. And then so there was tenterhooks. Heartbeat still there. Get a midwife. We went through, the first trimester, managing everything. I'm scared to still go to the bathroom.
Yeah, I'll bet.
I'm just trying to stay pregnant. I'm watching everything I eat. So at 12 weeks, I'm starting to tell people, got into the third trimester, gestational diabetes. You're going to be induced. I'm told I'm high risk. I'm old. I'm this, I'm that. I just want my baby safe. If you need to induce me, you do whatever you need to do. And it wasn't until I heard her cry that I relaxed.
Yeah.
And then... And then I was an emergency C-section, 48 hours. So,
Oh, Liz, my God. Do you know, though,
she was there.
she's there and also incredible strength, like ridiculous strength. What's really interesting that you brought up again, you had decided you needed to self-isolate. And I'm not suggesting at all that that's the reason this one stuck. It's just interesting that, you felt the need to do that again, and that helped you infinitely to get through an unbearably difficult time.
I think it just comes down to being brave and having hope, and also telling yourself that it's not your fault and you can only respond to what you can respond to. If I could go back, I would be like, do counselling.
Yeah.
Because he went through loss as well. One stage,
totally.
I was always like, what are you grieving about? Oh, it's my body that's rejecting it. All you had to do was this, and I've had to do. And the other thing too is that just the pressure that we put on ourselves. And then I get the stigma of being an older mum. So
look, the conversations you and I had, that's what really made me go, this is an absolute must do to, talk about these real and raw issues that people go through. None of us is about satiating what society wants and expects from us as women, us as human beings. None of it. I quite honestly don't think I would have had the wherewithal or the strength to go through what you have.
Being able to do my job, manage about 12 people, 12 teachers.
Yes.
Plus students, and still hold space. You didn't realise just how much they had grieved with you through the process. And our little Emily is our miracle. And I was like, if I want to have 2 baby showers, I want to have 2 baby showers.
Damn straight.
I physically, mentally cannot go through the process again. Even though after she was born, I was like, yes, now I can have a child. I was still thinking I want another child. Now I'm in the space where I'm working through all that trauma of going through IVF.
Yes.
And
raising your daughter now.
And now raising a child. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
It is hard yakka.
Yes.
Well, and we all come without the manual to do that. You learn as you go, and that in itself is crazy stuff, isn't it?
I think the other thing too is I don't forget the babies. She is not my first baby. There's still a thing about, miscarriage isn't a child or isn't it? It is. And people are valid to feel how they feel.
Totally.
You were pregnant. Your baby was your baby, regardless if it was 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, And so, like, for me, I tried to put my pain and my trauma into, like, creating the space for women, because I did lose friendships when I had Emily.
Yes.
Um, I lost I lost friends that still are in that space, and it hurts. But I was like, you know what? You're missing out on an opportunity of
Yeah.
meeting my daughter. But like, look at where we are now. I still get that you have Emily now. It's time to move on. I can focus on my daughter, but I can also remember my loss.
Totally. People like to gatekeep and tell you how to manage your grief. Put time boundaries around your grief.
Yeah.
It's not okay. I know that you have gone on as well to support young people, who young people getting pregnant so they can continue their studies at high school, helping other whānau and other young people going through a very challenging experience.
I did part-time at a teen parent unit. Like aren't you exposing yourself, to, it's like, no, I'm their teacher and my journey is my journey. Oh, don't you find it triggering? I was like, no, because I'm a professional and they need someone to give them the duty of care that they deserve.
You're
And
amazing. That's incredible. Really, don't diminish how incredible that actually is.
what they've overcome, and I can only ever be proud of these young women. My journey is completely different, and giving each other the space to learn and to have a future. And it was quite cool. Like, my baby was at daycare with their babies. That's probably the pinnacle of my career. Seeing those women be confident, they are entitled to an equitable education and a future. Anyone going through this, be kind to each other, be kind to yourself. Do the counselling. Remember that you can have hope. I'm grateful every day for my daughter, and I'm grateful that I can do what I do.
I could hear Emily's beautiful little voice in the background there. I'm so appreciative of you taking the time to share your story with us today.
Like, we've all got our own journey, right?
We absolutely do.
Sometimes our own journey gives us purpose to then help others. It's what makes this human connection so beautiful.
Well, thank you, Liz, and
You're welcome.
enjoy your family life, and we'll keep in touch. For more information about today's guest and the topic we discussed, check the description box for this episode. Join us again soon for more extraordinary stories from everyday people, shining the light of hope for others to follow.